Shalom, Ro.
Yes.
How you doing?
Thank God. Baruch Hashem. Beautiful. So good to see you. Look at this, how the weather changes just like that.
Indeed.
We were yesterday nice warm weather, and all of a sudden winter's arrived. But perhaps maybe a thought is that today is, it's Yom HaShoah. It's Holocaust Memorial Day.
Yes.
Maybe it's just related to the time we find ourselves in, that because it's Holocaust Memorial Day, the weather is accordingly, it's a cold memory, so it's a cold day, perhaps.
Dismal.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to share the page now, so those of you watching on Facebook or YouTube could see us as well. And with that, we'll begin. But just as we're getting ready to begin, if anyone has any thoughts or comments, any ideas, please feel free to share anything you'd like. After all, this is about interactive conversation. We want everybody to be part of it. Good morning, Benzi. So nice to see you. It's nice to see everybody here. So let's begin by discussing or recapping some of what we discussed yesterday. Okay. Sorry, here we go. Oh, I lost some of you there. Okay, you know what? As always, it takes me a minute to do everything to get it shared. And it's difficult to be a multitasker. I always thought I could multitask. I'm drinking my coffee, talking on the computer, trying to share the page. So give me 1 minute and we'll begin. In the meantime, go grab your coffee, grab a little biscuit. How do you like these? I got this from the US. Really nice, mini bits. And they are Pesach Dika cookies. So whatever it is that you want to enjoy, go ahead and enjoy it. We'll be back in a minute. If anyone wants to talk, you're welcome to talk for 2 minutes while I'm sharing the page.
Sheila, are you there? Hi.
Yeah, I'm here. How are you?
Baruch Hashem. Thank God. All good. And you?
Yeah, fine. Thank God. Just a bit cold today.
Today feels much cooler, but I think we get some rain and then perhaps I think the hot summer days are over. So please God, go into autumn.
Ross, have you got the link for the Yom HaShoah program for later?
No, where's it on the I'll go onto the Jewish. Have you got it?
I don't think it's a Jewish report. It's a Jewish. I don't know.
I'll go onto the Jewish report.
No, it's not on the Jewish report. I don't think.
Report, Jewish board.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gents, let's begin. So today being Yom HaShoah, there's what to reflect on this Holocaust Memorial Day. And I think we have to certainly consider whatever happened then, and perhaps what can be done to prevent it from ever happening. Look, anti-Semitism at the end of the day is a chronic disease that still exists. We're never going to truly, completely eliminate it. But we have to do our part, at least within us, as a community, as a Jewish community. What can we strive to do to remove that hatred, that animosity? Because worse than anti-Semitism is hatred within ourselves. So yesterday we began the discussion, and I think it's very pertinent and relevant to the commemoration of today. We talked about Rabbi Akiva being the great sage who he was, who taught that the most important verse of the entire Torah. By the way, there were other sages who felt there were other verses that were more important. But to Rabbi Akiva, the most important verse was to love your fellow as yourself, said Rabbi Akiva. Zeklal Gadol Torah is a fundamental principle of the entire Torah. And the question we asked was, if that to Rabbi Akiva was the most important verse, then how is it possible that his own students were so deficient in this area? How is it possible that they did not get along with each other? As the Gemara tells us, the reason why this plague was there, that in which they all 24,000 of them died, is because they did not accord respect to one another. So in order to understand what is respect and understand the difference between it, To really get to the core of our lesson, we looked at the difference between respect and love, or loving versus liking. And we looked at a few ideas. In general, there are people we respect but don't love. There are those that we might like but don't necessarily respect, or we might not like but don't necessarily respect. There are those who we love and like and respect. Kudos to them and to us. And then, of course, there are those who we don't necessarily have any feeling towards, any stranger, we have nothing to do with them. So by dissecting, by analyzing what the difference is between liking and respecting and loving, we could really come to a better understanding of how to be better human beings, how to be better people, how to be better Jews. So we said the one thing that we could distinguish, we could differentiate our liking someone versus loving them, is that we love people who we have something in common with. We love our children, we love our spouse, we love those we have something to do with them, right? The challenge, though, is respecting. And there's a difference, because respecting, liking somebody has to do with the differences, whereas loving them has to do with what we have in common with them. We're inextricably connected. So yesterday we discussed the idea that sometimes even the animosity to those who we love could sometimes be that much greater. There's a greater hatred towards those who we love, because perhaps in those cases we respect them, we expect more from them, right? There's a certain greater expectation that we have from those individuals, and in life in general, that it seems like that those family foibles are all the more stronger than the ones that we have with strangers, because if there's a stranger I don't like, I don't care about them, I don't have to see them, I don't have to deal with them. But if somebody who's part of me that I'm not getting along with, that's very problematic, because that's a person who I have feelings towards. What am I going to do? Ignore them for eternity? I've shared this with you before, but it's worthwhile reminding ourselves that Tzemach Tzedek explains the difference between children and adults. With kids, we see that sometimes they get into a fight about something, and a short while later, they make up the best of friends. But somehow with adults, it could be many years later, and they still haven't worked things out with each other. They're still crossing the road, they're still ignoring, they still avoid each other in the hypermarket. Why is that? It says the basic difference is because children prefer to be happy, and adults prefer to be right. If you want to be right, you can be miserable sometimes because you have to be right. I have to be right. I have to be, it's my way, the highway. Whereas if you feel that you want to be happy, and sometimes just loves, leave it, doesn't matter. And let me tell you, that's worked for me very many times in life. People call me, it happens. I'm not the most lovable person necessarily out there. I sometimes, for whatever reason, might earn somebody's animosity. And if they call me a name, I've learned, just let it go. If we let them rent free in our heads, then we're being double tormented. Not always does that work, right? Sometimes all the more so. If it's a person we love, we have feelings towards them, then it hurts us all the more so. If it's a bond, if it's a connection, if it's a relationship that we don't want to be strained, then that's where it really hurts, and that's where I can't let it go. But if a stranger called me a Michigana, okay, big deal. So they called me a Michigana. And I have relatives in Michigan. They're also Michiganas. Big deal. But if it's somebody who I love, somebody I feel connected to, then it does hurt. And so, my friends, the difference between the love is the people we have much more in common with, our family, whereas liking and respecting usually is something that has to be earned. It's something that requires work. You have to earn that respect. I know as a rabbi, I don't automatically get the respect. Yes, people are somewhat respectful, but it's something that you earn by personal relationship. It could be sometimes easily lost with people's perceived lack of care or whatever it might be. And we have to work on it. We're all human beings. A rabbi is not an angel. I remember a shul that was looking to hire a rabbi, and the previous shul gave a reference. Said, this rabbi is amazing. He's like Moses, King David, an angel. They get the guy, and he's a misery. They say, how did you lie to us? They tell the previous Shul committee. So what do you mean? Like Moses, he could hardly speak. Moshe had a speech impediment. Like King David, he doesn't know English. And like a malach is a nitke mensch. You understand? Oh, we have to work on ourselves, all of us. We all have what to work on. But this doesn't just apply to, this applies to all relationships. As Rabbi Mendel of Kotsk said, and I put it into today's slide so we don't forget the exact terminology. He said, if I am I because you are you, and you are you because I am I, then I am not I and you are not you. But if I am I because I am I, and you are you because you are you, which means I'm not I to impress you, then I am I and you are you. Meaning I'm being true, genuine, sincere, real to myself. Now we can begin to talk. The idea of respect, says the Kotzker, is that I have the right to be me and you have the right to be you. If in any relationship you don't feel comfortable being true to yourself, that's not a good relationship to be in. That's not a good situation. And something needs to be rectified. Something needs to be fixed in that situation because there's just something wrong there if that's a relationship. Relationships need to be one where there's mutual respect. So with that in mind, let us proceed to today's shir to understand the difference between love and respect. And I want to dedicate today's shir to the loving memory of Arnon ben Rabbi Shiyahu Goldberger, who was a member of our shul, a founding member, and a good friend from back in Pretoria. I see Sibyl has joined us. Sibyl, I wonder how Pesach was in Israel. Hope you had a wonderful Pesach. And we're with you in thoughts and prayer. And today's shir is dedicated to Arnon. And let's look at something here within relationships that we could learn from, that perhaps could give us the antidote, not only on Yom HaShoah, because we can't control the anti-Semites beyond, but we can control the hatred within. So when it comes to our children, we said, all parents love their children. The question is about the respect of our children. And vice versa, do our children respect us as their parents? I'm sure they love us. So considering it's Yom HaShoah, there has to be a way to understand what is this concept of anti-Semitism. I know I'm going to make it a little bit humorous for now. But the question they ask is, what's the difference between the anti-Semite and the Jew? Because if you ever notice, they both hate the Jews. What do I mean? Well, perhaps this will illustrate the difference between love and like, and that's why it's a metaphor I like to use. So the answer to this perhaps can be found in, ask any civil anti-Semite about his opinion of the Jewish people. And what's he going to tell you? Horrible people, vermin of the earth, right? Aggressive occupiers, they tell us, right? What do they say? Stingy billionaires, they run the country, they're guilty of global warming. It's our fault that the COVID-19, all the other problems of the world. Unfortunately, that's what we face oftentimes. We're blamed for all types of problems. Winston Churchill once said, an anti-Semite is somebody who hates Jews more than necessary. So I'm not talking about the guy who hates us as much as necessary. Just basically, you ask the anti-Semite, and I believe I was told even Hitler Yamach Shemo had certain Jews who he knew that he needed them for certain things until he got rid of them too, because he was, an anti-Semite. But you ask the anti-Semite who their cardiologist is, and they'll tell you Dr. Castle, right? You ask him who his attorney is, and I'll tell you Mr. Hoffman. And you ask him who his accountant is, and I'll tell you Mr. Jaffe. And you ask him who his travel agent is, and I'll tell you Shana Chrysler. And you ask them who's their everything, and they give you Jewish people. So you say, but they're Jewish. What does he explain? No, they're different. These guys are different. They're the exception. They're honest individuals. I don't like Jews, but these guys are not like the rest of them. Or whatever other lousy excuse they come up with. Okay, that's the anti-Semite. Now ask a Jew for his opinion about the Jewish people. What's he going to tell you? Oh, Mikamchi Yisrael. There's nothing better than the Jewish people, right? But then ask him about, he could praise the Jewish people from today to tomorrow, but ask him about his neighbor, right? What's he going to tell you? Ashmendik, a liar, whatever problems he'll tell you about the neighbor. Ask him about his brother-in-law, Aganev, a thief. Ask him about the guy who sits next to him and shul, so annoying. Ask him about someone else, horrible, right? What happened? Why are the Jewish people I listen to you such low lives, dirt of the earth? But you say the Jews are the best, right? You see, the Jew loves the Jewish people, but has a hard time liking them. The anti-Semite, yeah, he might like certain individual Jews, but doesn't love, he hates our people. You understand the difference? You see, we Jews are one family. We fight like family, argue like family. We also love each other like a family. And even the Jew is completely different than I am. We still have a love, we still have feelings for them. Because on a deep level, we're all truly one. We're united by our fate, by our history, by our destiny, by our biology, by the enemies who hate us. We're all related to each other in one way or another. What happens when two Jews meet? Right away, a game of Jewish geography. So we're united by the fact that there are people who hate us, wherever we are. And we're united by the fact of all these things that unite us, that bond us together. There was a great Kabbalist, he's still around. His name is Jackie Mason. He says when two Jews meet and within 3 minutes they haven't established some kind of family relationship, then it's certain that one of them is not Jewish. I always find it. Here on our Pesach retreat, we had Jews from mostly South Africans this year. Everybody meets up. In fact, we had two neighbors who met each other on the retreat. They never knew that they're neighbors. Why? You wonder how that's possible. I don't think that would ever happen in Brooklyn. Because in Brooklyn, where I come from, everybody lives in small little houses next to each other. You easily know who all your neighbors are. We live in Joburg. People live in these big plots of land. They live on an acre. You don't know who the next acre over is. We all have these big walls. We're all too busy these days with our own lives. We don't know who each other is. All of a sudden, we're at a Pesach retreat. You sit down, you get talking to the guy next. Wait, you live at 64, but I live at 65. Can't believe it. So this is really the essential bond that we have. We're united by our spiritual core. We're united because we have that Yiddish neshama, the soul, the pintele yid that each of us possesses. Like every existence, whether it's material or spiritual in this world, our soul is made up of many subparts. And so the neshama is part of a larger entity. And this is something that's explained in the works of the Arizal, how we're all like one body, like one entity, like one soul. So he talks about the soul of Adam Arishon, Adam. It's the all-encompassing soul of all individuals. And what happens is he explains, and the Arizal explains, that all Jews constitute a particular, we all have the components of a single whole, one entity, one family, one community. So the concept is that we are all part of that same soul. We're all connected with each other. And the Gemara explains that this mitzvah, to love your fellow as yourself, the Gemara uses a very interesting metaphor for this. In fact, it comes to mind. I think it's in Tractate Nedarim. The Gemara says, what would a person do if while you're cutting a piece of meat with a knife, you're in your kitchen, you're getting dinner ready, and you cut your hand by mistake, right? You cut your, it never happened to you? I cut salad sometimes. Okay, I'm not that good in the kitchen. But if I'm doing some work in the kitchen and I happen to cut a salad or something and I cut my finger, am I going to cut the finger that cut the finger? Is that what you would do? Obviously not, right? Why not? Because it's part of your same entity. You're one. And in that sense, the Arizal saying that we are all like diverse limbs of a single body. So if I insult you, if I harm you, it's not only you that I'm damaging, I'm harming myself because we are interconnected, because we are one. So when it comes to the anti-Semite, no, he's not part of us. Yeah, he hates the Jewish people, might like individuals, but we are family. We are one. We have that Yiddish neshama that unites us, that bonds us all together. So with that in mind, let's there's some questions here that I wanted to discuss. But just to sum up what we've discussed so far, we have that love. It's a natural. It's within us. We all have that love. We love each other because in so many ways we are so similar. And we're essentially one. But the problem is that we don't always get along. Right? We sometimes struggle getting along with each other, liking each other. And I think for that, we have to discuss why it is. Why do we sometimes get judgmental and, denigrating? I remember one year we did a program with another community, and anything I recommended was impossible. Tried to explain the organizer, the very word impossible says I'm possible. We could work it out. But there is something here, it works. If it's my minhag, it says minhag Yisrael Torah. My minhag, my custom is sacred. Your minhag, same letters as the word Gehenim, purgatory. Sad, right? It's not enough that we love Klal Yisrael, the whole community. We also have to learn to appreciate Rabbi Yisrael, the individual. So what can we do about that? What's the solution? So here's some questions. Anyone want to chime in? Sometimes you can apply this to marriages, divorces. Why is it that one day the Romeo and Juliet and the next day Hitler, Stalin? Never happens in a marriage that people have disagreements? Is there a lack of respect, perhaps? Do you think that our love is enough to guide us in raising our children? Is love enough? Do we have to respect our children? At what age and stage? Because when they're little, we have that responsibility to raise them and to guide them in the right direction, regardless whether they like it or in the mood of it or not. Perhaps when they're older, we just have to respect their decisions, whether or not we approve of them. We don't necessarily have to endorse it. Can we respect it? And let's talk more nationally, collectively. Why do so many of us love the Jewish nation as a whole, but we have a hard time getting along with so many of our fellow Jews? And a day like today, Yom HaShoah, I think we need to discuss a little bit what Chassidus, what Kabbalah, what Jewish mysticism, what the Talmud tells us. And if we go back to the story of the students of Rabbi Akiva, maybe we could solve some of this problem. Because we asked earlier, why is it that Rabbi Akiva's students did not respect each other? Didn't he teach to love your fellow as yourself? The Klal Gadol Torah is the most important fundamental principle of the entire Torah. So how is it possible that Rabbi Akiva's students did not have respect for one another? After all, if you are the student of this great rabbi, shouldn't you be living up to his teachings? Right? Shouldn't you personify? Shouldn't you be the ones that exemplify what he taught? And perhaps one answer the Gemara tells us is that it was because of this teaching, because of these words, that they disrespected each other. And perhaps we could learn lessons of how to fix that. And without quoting the actual words of the Talmud, the Gemara tells us that actually the students of Rabbi Akiva, they loved each other so much that each one felt they had the right way of interpreting and understanding the teachings of the Torah. And if you were not following in their path, you had it wrong. And they had to do everything in their power to persuade you, to bring you to their way of thinking. Now that sounds good, but the problem is there are many perspectives. We are different types of Jewish people. Look here, how many of you are participating on Zoom, on Facebook, on YouTube? And we just came back from our retreat. We had a wonderful, diverse crowd of different types of people. Says the Gemara, one respects another person because they see in them a quality that you are lacking in. I admire somebody perhaps for their expertise in maths or whatever it might be. By the way, just because I respect and admire them doesn't mean I love them. They're not my family. I don't have that mutual common relationship with them. I respect them because they are better than me in that particular area. So, and perhaps I'm respected for that too by others. And in fact, in the world, in life, that's the way it is. Some people, that's the way society works. It's the normal way of the world. Some people are better than others in certain areas and aspects. And in that sense, you might say, if you look at a single body, there are various limbs. There's a head, there's a heart, right? Yeah, there are hands, there are fingers, there are extremities, there are many different parts of the body. So then, does one need to respect the others? The students of Rabbi Akiva, the Gemara says, each one felt that they had to compel the other to their way of thinking. They loved each other like a family. Perhaps you could say like the limbs of the body in the metaphor that was employed by the Arizal. But they didn't respect, they didn't appreciate the other person's qualities. And that deep feeling of love was not good enough. In life, you can't just have love. There needs to be that respect. Yeah, they were all students of the same rabbi. And for that, they loved each other. As long as they melt. Pardon?
Sorry to interrupt you. May I ask a question?
Sure, yeah.
Is love not ego? Is there not ego involved in the love relationship?
Perhaps partially. Oftentimes, a good story to depict what real love is versus fake love. The story of the fish. My father, of blessed memory, used to like telling us that story to illustrate this point. Guy says, I love fish, I love fish, I love fish, right? And then the fish is caught in the ocean, nice, beautiful salmon. And the fisherman says, we're going to bring it to this guy who loves the fish. And the fish says, wow, they love me. They'll probably take good care of me, put me in a nice aquarium with water. He's struggling to breathe. And finally, they bring him into the kitchen. They're about to chop its head. And the fish says, you don't love me. You love yourself. So that's one type of love where it's not really for the other. That's self-love. And you're right, that's certainly an element of ego. But there's no doubt when it comes to loving your children, is that ego? When you love your parents or your siblings, I'm not sure about that. I think there's a certain common denominator that you share. There's something in there that I wouldn't put it to ego. There's a similarity, and it brings in an inextricable connection that causes the feelings of love. Make sense?
Yes, thank you, Rabbi.
Okay. But the thing is, respect doesn't work that way. And I'm not sure if respect is something that's earned. And if you go to the students of Rabbi Akiva, what the Talmud seems to be implying is that although they loved each other because they all were students of the same great rabbi, they didn't necessarily respect another person's avodas Hashem, the way they serve God. And maybe they felt, because I love him, I want to make sure that he is serving God the way I think, the way I deem is the appropriate way. Because if you do it any other way, that's wrong. But I think we all know that God appreciates and God wants us all to serve God in our own, each unique, individual, indispensable way. God created us each as individuals. They tell the story about a moving exchange between what was the famous musician's name, Mozart, and the Austrian emperor. And it was after a symphony. So the emperor tells the composer, he says, your work is ingenious. It's quality work, but there's simply too many notes. That's all. Just cut a few away and it's going to be perfect. And Mozart asks the emperor, tell me,
which notes did you have in mind? Which ones? We have to realize we're all part of a symphony. Each of us is a note in that ballad in the eternal symphony of the divine. And just as the ballad, no two notes are the same. They each contribute, they each make the music so beautiful. God needs each of us. You are unique. You are indispensable to God's plan for this world. And there's no way this world could exist without you, without your contribution, without the difference that you make here in this world. That was the story with the students of Rabbi Akiva. So here is the point. Just a second. So here's the point, that it's very nice that they loved each other, but what about respecting another person's way of seeing things? What do we say in Pirkei Avos? Should judge each person favorably, right? So do we judge the students? Did they judge each other favorably, or only, that's one of the problems we face in a community. Oftentimes people become judgmental and disparaging. Okay, so I think it's a very important point that has to be taken, and not just in the story of Rabbi Akiva's students, that they loved each other, but that wasn't enough. They also had to learn to respect each other. I think it's something that we all have to learn in life. There's a special bracha that you meant to say when you see a big crowd of people. You ever heard of that bracha? It's called Birchas Chacham Harazim, the blessing of the multitudes, that God made so many people. And we say, just as Keshem she'ein partzufeim Shabbos, just as their faces are not the same, ain't they the same Shabbos? People's minds are not the same. We have different ways of seeing and understanding things. And we could live and let live. We could respect another person's perspective. So this is certainly an important,
Rabbi, morning to you and everybody.
Hi,
Just
Barney.
on this point, the kickoff where Rabbi Akiva said, love your fellow as yourself. And surely that respect or that tension amongst the students was a fundamental defect in their own self-respect. They didn't respect themselves, and hence it spilled over into the wider arena.
Yeah, that's a very good point you're making, Benzi. Oftentimes, I think when people struggle getting along with others, it's because their own self-esteem is deficient. They have, issues with their own self-esteem, and that's very possible that that contributes. So that's a good point.
They had hang-ups. I think they each had hang-ups, and they didn't get past that. And that defect just mushroomed.
Absolutely. That certainly could be part of it. I'm sure if we got a psychoanalyst, then I'm sure they could, Viktor Frankl during the Shoah oftentimes analyzed people and talked about those who lacked in their own self-esteem had a harder time getting along with others and had a harder time in general survival. Mickey mentions here that in secular thought, they say no one is indispensable. That's exactly the opposite of what we're saying. Yes, thank you, Mickey. That's certainly not the Torah perspective. The Torah perspective we're saying is that you are indispensable. If God put you in this world, it means you have a purpose that no one else can achieve. Now, I know in business they say nobody's indispensable, and I've been told that I lost the job that way. No one's indispensable. Find somebody else. It happens. You just got to make your life, but that's not the Torah's perspective. In fact, a story that comes to mind, and I don't want to go through, I've told you the story before, but the story goes about in Iran, about, a little over a century ago, I think it was in the late 1800s, there was maybe a, what do they call the leaders there? A mufti, something like that. in a certain region called Kashan, the Kashan region. And what happened was, for whatever reason, he said he wants all Jews to convert to Islam, or they were going to be expelled from the entire province, from the entire region. The Jews didn't know what to do. Praying, they tried pleading, they tried to beg, they tried everything. Nothing worked. He gave a certain date, and he said either you convert to Islam or you leave or face death. And the deadline was approaching, and the community didn't know what they were going to do. You know, the davening, they're fasting. What do? There were just 2 weeks left to the deadline. Literally a deadline. You know, the Rabbi didn't like the word deadline. Generally, he said we prefer to use the term due date for positive, you know, to be focused on positivity, but this is literally a deadline. And the community was really at a loss what to do. And the Rabbanit, the Rebbitzin, and some of her the ladies' guild, they came up with a plan, but they kept it secret. They said, you rabbis, you could pray. We have a plan, a practical plan. And they got working. And then they sent a delegation to go visit this mufti. And they asked him to just grant them a moment. Just give them a moment. They have a gift to bring in. You know, who doesn't like a nice gift? He said, you're not going to persuade me with your gift, but let's see what you got. And they presented their gift. They said, in fact, we didn't just bring one gift to you. We brought you 2 options. You get to choose which one you want as your gift. Now he's very curious. So he right away said, let's see what you got. What have you brought me? And so they presented themselves on behalf of the entire Jewish community. We ladies have worked hard, and we want to present this special gift. We have 2 carpets. Okay, we've been working on it. We've been weaving them. Both these carpets are broad and they're plush, tightly woven, and they're made out of the most exquisite, beautiful materials, the finest quality. And they presented the first one, and this one was so magnificent. It was covered with colorful curvings, you know, those Persian curvings that they put inside their carpets. And there were designs of gold and green and turquoise, and it was intricately intertwined with whirling waves of different colors and floral arrangements, you name it. The tapestry that was magnificent. It was splendid. Silhouettes of every size, shape, you know, every magnificent aspect you can imagine that was included in this beautiful, beautiful carpet. I mean, in the center was this magnificent, breathtaking royal blue. And you could have just use your imagination what a gorgeous Persian rug, beautifully woven together, looked like. That was option A. And option B, they rolled out a second carpet. This carpet was just red, plain red. That was all. The whole rug was just one solid, magnificent, but plain red, from top to bottom, from end to end. And this mufti says, I don't understand. Why would I take the red carpet and not the magnificent, colorful one that you chose, that you presented? You know, the first one had all these magnificent colors and personality and floral drawings. Why would I even think of taking the red one? And so the Rabbanit said, well, the silk rugs are the territory, this region, this province where we live. And today the province is filled with every imaginable culture and creed, all the different colors and depictions in this carpet that we made for you represent all the different people who live in this region. Muslims and Christians and Zulus and Jews, yeah, and Turks, and you name it, you know, all the different people who live here. That's what the first carpet represents, with all its magnificent colors and personalities. But the second carpet, the red one, is your ultimatum. You asked us to convert to Islam or leave or die or face death penalty. Well, that's what it represents. Which would you rather? A carpet full of colors, personalities? And that's really, I think, a very important message. I think the story is that he got the point and he altered the decree. But the point to us is, in life, we have to appreciate our differences. We have to accept and respect the differences. And that was the problem the students of Rabbi Akiva. But I promised you a lesson, and I want to conclude at this point because still going to be here for another 15, 20 minutes. Let's conclude. This whole story, when did it happen? During this time of the year, right? During the time of counting Sphira, which is started last week. Today is the 10th day of the Omer counting. And it will continue for another 39 days. Now, let's just look at our calendar, because our calendar is unique. We are now in the first month of the Jewish calendar. Yep. We're in the first month of the Jewish calendar, the month of Nisan, right? Rosh Hashanah is not the first month, the 7th month. So the first 3 months in which we count the Omer are Nisan, Iyar, Sivan. They're like a trio. Now, the first month, Nisan, we just celebrated Pesach, where we gained our independence. We were emancipated from our slavery in Egypt. We became the free Jewish nation. And we started counting the Omer then on the second day of Pesach, right? So the first month, for about half the month, we're counting the Omer. From the 16th till the end of the month, till Rosh Chodesh, which will be on Monday, Tuesday next week. But if you take next month, Iyar, we count the Omer for the entire month. All 29 days in the month of Iyar, from the beginning to the end of the month, we're still counting. And then in Sivan, we count just till the 6th day, right? Because the 50th day of the Omer counting is Shavuot. So, what does this tell us? We've been doing this for 3,333 years. Ever since we left Egypt, we were counting from Pesach till Shavuot, counting down from freedom from Egyptian bondage to receiving the Torah at Mount Sinai. But what's the significance of this? What message, what lesson can we take from this? People oftentimes ask this question about, do we Jews believe in what do they call it, in horoscopes or in the astrological signs, and there's another name for it. You have to remind me what it's called. But basically, the zodiac, right? There are 12 formations of stars corresponding with the 12 months of the year. And in fact, if you look in Jewish writings going all the way back to the Talmud, and I believe even before that in Sefer Yetzirah, which is much older, I'm not exactly sure how old Sefer Yetzirah is, but it's an ancient work about the beginnings of creation. And it talks about the months. The first month, Nisan, is called Tla, which means the ram, Aries, as what we call it. The second month, coming up next week, which is when Ramadan begins on Monday, Tuesday, is Shar. That is the bull, Taurus. The month after that, my birthday, is Gemini, or it's called in Hebrew, Tu'umim, which means twins. And you can go through each of the months, right? Then you have Cancer, then you have Leo. My son, Gedalia, is born in Leo. I think then you have Virgo, you have Libra, Scorpio. Each of the months have their significance. But let's just talk about the months that are related to the counting of the Omer. Okay? What do they have to do? What is Pesach and Nisan? And let's just dissect these 3 months and see what the relation is, what message, lesson, what relevance it has to us today. So, what astrological sign is now? Aries, right? What is Aries? We have Aries, Taurus, Gemini. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan. What is the significance? Aries is the sheep, the ram. It's a herd animal. Okay? We think about current times, we're told we need herd immunity in order to overcome this whole coronavirus. Now, think about it. What is the lifestyle of sheep? They live, they thrive in groups. By nature, they are docile, they're submissive. Whereas if you look at Taurus, which starts next week, the bull is more aggressive, it's individualistic. A bull can get very angry, can assert its strength, its personality. So that's the difference between Nisan and Iyar. Nisan, that's the month of our redemption from Egypt. Nisan is the month that represents our collective identity as the Jewish people. When we left Egypt, we were all together as one. It was on Pesach when we were molded into that single nation. We all were in it together in order to leave Egypt. So Nisan is the month of love. We come together loving each other like a nation, like one big family, like a herd of sheep. That's Nisan, right? And that's a very important aspect that we have to focus on, the love, right? That's when we became the Jewish nation. It's an unbreakable bond that was created. If you look at Wikipedia, the definition of a nation is a community of people that share a common language, culture, ethnicity, descent, or history. They have all that, right? So that all began on Pesach. And that's why Pesach is the month of Nisan. It is the sign of the ram. It is Aries. It's the sign of the ram. And it's the time that we focus on our community. In fact, Pesach, what do? We celebrate as a community. We celebrate as a family together. But comes Iyar, which begins next week. Iyar is the month that is, what's the sign of Iyar? Come on. Taurus, the bull. What is the bull's personality? Very individual, right? Pardon?
Egotistic.
The bull is what?
Egotistic.
Egotistic. Yeah, you got a good point there. And that's certainly part of the aspect of that's the bull. But maybe that's why most of the Sefirah counting takes place during the sign of Taurus, because it's about self-refinement. We're not just counting the days now in Sefirah. We make every day count. We're working on our personal self-refinement during this time. So the whole entire period of Taurus is about dedicating each day to another Sefirah, to another emotion within ourselves, in order to develop it, in order to refine it, in order to work on ourselves, right? What's the focus on? How I'm going to refine my personality. That's the month of Iyar. Now, there are many counts in Judaism, right? We count the days of the week, 6 days of the week leading up to Shabbos. We count the days of the month, 29 or 30 days each month. Then we have a new moon, new beginnings. We've many times discussed the lesson, the idea how the moon waxes and wanes. We also have our ups and downs in life, better days, worse days, make the most of it. We count the years of Shemitah. This year is a Shemitah year, it's a sabbatical year, you know that? And of course, they're the years we count, 7 sabbatical years, 7 Shemitahs lead up to a Yovel, a Jubilee year. But all these counts are conducted by the Sanhedrin, by the Jewish court, by the establishment. They're not necessarily counts about the individual. If you don't count the days of the week, big deal. Shabbos is going to come anyhow. You better get ready for it. But Shabbos is coming. The only count in Judaism that, in fact, you are meant to count and keep count of is Sefirah. The Torah says, "Usfartem lachem mimacharas Shabbos." You should count from the day after Shabbos, which is referring to the Omer counting. And what does the Gemara say? That every single individual, every person has to count. You can't rely on the rabbi counting for you. Rabbi can make kiddush and you can be fulfilled. There are many brachas other people can make for you. Not Sfiras Omer. You have to do your own counting of the Omer. You can't be included in someone else's counting. You have to make the counting of the Omer yourself. So this is a mitzvah that each one of us has to count every single day. If you didn't yet count, let's do the counting right now. Hayom, Asara, Yamim, Shehem, Shavua Echad, Shlosha Yamim Omer. Today's 10 days, which is 3 days of the Omer counting. Now that's also interesting. Did you notice that we didn't just count we said it's 10 days, which is a week and 3 days. Come on, guys. Don't you know that already? You know basic maths?
Yeah.
If you know basic maths, you know the counting, right? So why do we have to count both the days and the weeks? What's that about? Doesn't it seem superfluous, redundant, repetitive? Why can't we just count either the days? We could say today is 10 days of the Omer. Or just count the weeks and say today is 1 day and 3 days. We can figure out exactly which day it is. Why do we have to do both? And this is the lesson for today that I want to conclude with, which is very important on a day like Yom HaShoah and in general for life. They're both important. The counting of the weeks and the counting of the days represent two distinct factors in our lives. Each of us is an individual, a day, but we're also part of a larger whole, a part of a community, which is represented by the weeks. Right? Doesn't the Mishnah Perek Yavos tell us? Im ein ani li mili, Hillel taught, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? You got to take care of yourself. Baruch hashani la'atzmi, if I'm only for me, ma'ani, who am I? You have to remember both are important. Myself, but also my community. So the count of the week represents me. The count of the week represents the community. But the count of the day represents the individual. And perhaps you have to start with the individual. That's why the first week is just the individual. What do they tell us on flights? You can't help another before you help yourself. You have to first fix the oxygen on yourself. Only then could you take care of the person sitting next to you. As a medic, the same thing. Our own safety comes first. These days, since COVID, we medics, we have to duff and done. It's a whole done and duff. It's a whole procedure about how we look after patients, and it adds another few minutes onto any emergency that we go to. Why? Because if we get sick, then there'll be nobody to take care of the patients. The same thing applies to parents. The same thing applies to everyone. You have to take care of yourself. So the days come first, but then comes the week. The Alter Rebbe said that the 7 branches of the menorah correspond to the 7 days of creation. The menorahs of the Beis Hamikdash, the temple, had 7 branches. And each of the 7, he says, consists of 10, representing all the descendants of Yaakov. So he says, it talks about each of our souls. So the count of the day is the focus on each individual. Every day is different. Every day is unique. So like the menorah, each branch might be an individual, but they all come together. We're all part of a greater whole. So every day counts. But we also have to remember we're part of a greater collective. We're part of a community. Don't forget about the greater community that we're part of. And so that brings us to the next symbol, which is the symbol of, what's the last symbol? What's the next one? Sivan.
Sivan.
Sivan is Gemini. Pardon? What's that? Let's take a look.
Gemini.
Gemini, exactly. When the Jews received the Torah at Har Sinai, it says they were Ke'isha b'levecha. They were like one person with one heart. If even one person was missing, they would not have been able to receive the Torah at Har Sinai. So that is where you come together, where you join the community and the individual. So Nisan now is about the community. Iyar next month will be about the individual. And the plague that struck the students of Rabbi Akiva, the pandemic at that time, happened during the entire period of counting the Omer. Because this teaches us about that it's not enough to just have love. It's not just enough to be there for ourselves. We have to be there for the other as well. But you can only be there for the other if you're there for yourself. So we need the combination, the synthesis of both aspects. And this is what we learn now during this time. So of course, anti-Semitism on Yom HaShoah, we could educate, we could learn, but at the end of the day, we have to work on ourselves. And this is the avoda of this time of the year. We have to combine the two aspects, kavod, respect, and ahava, love, both important. And if we could get both of them together, then there's no doubt we'll have more unity in our community, and that will make all the difference in the world. Any questions before we conclude here? Come on, guys. Don't be so shy.
Rabbi, just a question, the signs of the zodiac, and
Yeah.
with respect, I'm not trying to make too light-hearted, but you cannot, in my mind, categorize mankind under 12 categories, and to say that everybody born under the sign of Taurus is aggressive, and you take and the Leos believe I'm a Leo, so I don't believe that everybody's part of royalty. So you can't say that the 12 categories of people, everybody has their unique qualities and their strengths and their weaknesses. So
It's certainly true what you're saying.
Generalization.
The Gemara says, "Ein mazel Yisrael," which means you're not controlled by your mazel, but your mazel certainly has an influence. Basically, the Talmud is saying if you're born under a certain constellation, that's your horoscope, then there are certain aspects of that astrological sign that you are prone towards. It doesn't mean you are dominated by it. And for example, the Gemara tells us that if one is born under the mazel, I don't know which mazel is blood, but whichever one it is that's blood related, then it's your decision what you're going to do with it. One blood could mean one will be a butcher. It could be one will be a doctor. It could be one will be a murderer. It could be one will be a surgeon. So what you're going to do with it is entirely up to you. How you're going to utilize your particular talent, skill, or specialty that's related to that month. So I never knew really the signs of Gemini. Perhaps when people started telling me about them, I started getting a little bit, oh, okay, I could fit that aspect of Gemini. They claim that Geminis have the gift of the gab. Let me tell you something. I was not a public speaker. I was very introverted until I was probably in my mid to late teens. I was a very reserved and shy person. And sometimes I still am, believe it or not. But people said to me, "You're a Gemini. You have it." I sort of like said, "Oh, it's within me. I just have to reveal that identity that I possess." And so I worked on it, and here I am. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but certainly it's related. And if I were to take the words of the Gemara at face value, the Gemara is saying that there's no doubt that the constellation in which you're born, that astrological sign, has something to do with your nature, has an influence in it. Whether or not it dominates, I don't think it dominates you. It says, Ein mazel Yisrael, you're not dominated by it, but it does play a role in your life, but it's up to you to channel it in the right direction.
It's true, Rabbi. Yes, because Gemini, if you really wanted to, could even represent a split personality. And it's how
I have that too. I always ask for discounts wherever I go. They say, "Where's the group?" I say, "Look, you know how many personalities I have here?" But yeah, I do think that there is something to it, and the Gemara wouldn't make it up. But at the end of the day, the Gemara is saying you can control yourself, and we see this the newspapers publish the daily horoscope. Let me tell you, if all those horoscopes are true, I'd be in deep trouble, because oftentimes I read those horoscopes, I'm like, oh my gosh. So you're not dominated by it, but it certainly can have an impact.
Rabbi,
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, go ahead, Sheila. You had a question, someone? I lost you there. Okay, if anyone has any more questions before we go. Okay, again, today's learning is dedicated in memory of Arnon ben Rabbi Yeshayahu Goldberger, and we wish everybody a wonderful day. Please do another mitzvah in loving memory of Arnon, and may his memory be for tremendous blessing and merit to his family on this day. If anyone's in the Santon Central area, please join us at 5:30 for Mincha Ma'ariv. We have a minyan at the shul for Arnon's yard site. Please come join us. Who here was looking to come to my Lester? You wanted to come to the shul. Today's a good day to come. I'll even make sure to have some snacks and l'chaim for the occasion.
Shame.
Okay, Zach has
Rabbi?
sent everybody. Yes.
Where, do you have the link for the Yom HaShoah program?
Now give me a second. I'll find it on the web on the web page of the Jewish Board of what SAJBD, right? Is that what they're
I
called?
think
South African
so,
Jewish Board of
yeah.
Deputies? Okay, give me a second. I'll go to their web page and I'll find it. And I can
Thank you.
post it on the group.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Thank you. We
Thank
like
It
it.
seems like it's on Friday.
Yeah.
It says here it's
so
on Friday, the 9th of April at 12 p.m.
Okay.
Doesn't look like it's today.
No, that's today.
Okay. Doesn't seem like it's today from what I see. Give me another minute. I'll check if I got any other messages from their website. It appears that it's only on Friday. Let me see.
Can't be.
I don't have any other information. I gotta look to see if there's anything else. But all I got is that it's on Friday at
But
12
that's
p.m.
not
online. So I'll send everybody the information so you could watch it. Okay.
But that's not Yom
look-
HaShoah, it's today. So why are they doing it
I
on
know.
Friday?
I know. Give me a second. Let me just look online to see if I can find anything else for Yom HaShoah today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Give me a second. And that's taking me into, hold on, let me see. I think it's taking me to the wrong
Also-
place.
I have join online Friday, the 9th of April at 12. My link also says Friday, the 9th
Yeah.
of April, with the reading of the name starting at 11:50.
Yeah, I don't see anything. Here we go. Yom HaShoah. Here, hold on, today. At 8 o'clock, it looks like one of the shuls is having something. I don't know who. They're having tonight, Nazi hunters and bringing genocidal killers to justice. Who's this from? The Jewish Report. I don't see, give me a moment to see if there's anything else. Jewish Report will have something on tonight.
Okay.
Okay, but I don't see any other events in my inbox for today. Okay.
Okay.
If I know
Thank you.
anything, I will send a message out. All right.
Okay,
you.
thank you, Rabbi.
Like I said to everyone, good seeing you. See you tomorrow morning, please, God. I'm preparing a nice share for tomorrow as well. I was learning an insight from the Rebbe about this week's Parsha that I think we could all learn from. And it reminds me a lot about Pesach. Let me just give you a quick preview of tomorrow's shir. You know, sometimes we feel like we're not in the mood of doing something, or we feel like I'm not interested in doing it. Why should I? We'll learn about that and discuss it tomorrow. Okay.
Very
All the
important.
best.